The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's SafetyCare webinar. Today we're going to talk about GDPR, how to meet the new data protection regulation. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for being here today with us. My name is Karolina, and joining me today is Mrs. Eva Shkornichkova, Advisor for Data Protection and IT Security, and our IT security expert, Mr. Maciej Zachar. The webinar will be divided into two parts. In the first one, we'll together with Mrs. Shkornichkova look into the general acquisition of GDPR, changes that go with it, and who should be concerned. The second one will be dedicated to IT security from the practical point of view and how companies should proceed. Mr. Maciej Zachar will guide us through that. After each section, you'll be presented with a short 2-minute questionnaire. During the whole session, we'll be receiving your questions in written form, and your questions will be answered during the webinar as well as at the end. Our attendees will be given slides, which means that you don't have to make any notes. A recording of today's webinar will also be available, and we hope you'll benefit from the information we present today. Now it's time to give the floor to our first speaker, Mrs. Eva Shkornichkova.
Good afternoon, everybody. And my goal and role today is just to give you the introduction to the General Data Protection Regulation, which is basically the new revolution in data protection. What is basically GDPR? General Data Protection Regulation is a new law which was approved by the European Parliament in April 2016. After a couple of years of negotiations, and this law will be effective as of 25th of May 2018, and it replaces directive, current regulation on the data protection. And as regards the Czech Republic, the Act number 101 from 2000 will be also replaced by the new regulation. Basically, the Czech law has to be adopted and has to be, adopted in the new version because of the existence of the regulation. As regards the GDPR itself, this is the most comprehensive set of the rules of data protection in the world. And due to the fact that it was adopted as a regulation, not as a directive, as a current law, the main goal of the regulation is the harmonization of the rules for all EU countries, and to bring the equivalent enforcement of the law and basically also the same penalties for all countries. And the main goal of the regulation is also to reduce the administration and the administrative steps that are currently effective according to the new directive. The reason why we have a GDPR in place is also this slide, because if you look at the numbers from year 2016, you see so many internet elements and phenomena that were not in the place in 95 in the year when the current directive was adopted. So one of the main reasons is basically to bring and to develop the new legislation, which will be following basically the technical development in digital world. The other reason why you should pay attention to the regulation is also this slide. Unfortunately, you could see very high numbers of fines that can be imposed in case that your companies will breach the rules of GDPR. Obviously, it depends on the various factors, whether 20 million euros or 10 million euros will be imposed on the company which breaches the regulation. So you could see the list of the various factors that will definitely influence the level and the amount of these administrative fines. But as you could see, and probably from your current experience in data protection legislation, the current fines are much lower than fines that are imposed by regulation. So the reason why you should pay attention to new data protection law is obviously this slide. And due to the fact that GDPR was adopted in 2016 and will be effective as of May 2018, there is almost 2 years period of time when you should make your company compliant with the new regulation, and definitely the supervisory bodies will start, focusing on the companies that basically didn't put any tool and any measure, either technical or organization, according to GDPR to bring your company into the compliance with GDPR. What will change? I will just, briefly describe the main changes which GDPR brings. The first one, which is already mentioned, is the reason why EU decided to adopt regulation instead of directive. So according to current data protection laws, we have a directive which was transposed into the national legislation in each EU countries. So these local variations are not to be applicable anymore according to regulation, because, as I said, we have a one legislation which basically governs all countries. So that would be more significant changes in data protection legislation. What is personal data? As it is according to current law, personal data are any information relating to the identified or identifiable natural person. It's important to say and stress the fact that GDPR, also the current regulation, doesn't apply to personal data of, for example, deceased persons, or it doesn't apply to anonymous data. On the other hand, it applies to not only the natural persons, but also to the entrepreneurs as a natural person, so it doesn't apply to the legal entities. What are the elements of the personal data? We have a certain group of the general elements like a name, sex, age, and birthday, citizenship. The new element is, for example, IP address, cookies, and also the photos. On the other hand, the other part of the personal data are the organizational. So as regards organizational data, we can include business or personal address, business or personal phone numbers, emails, and various verification IDs or national identification numbers. Again, the more personal data you would hold or you would process, then obviously there is a higher risk to your company to abuse, these personal data you have in the possession. So you have to. There is a stricter rule how to process the data, including the new category of the personal data, which you also might have in the position and you can process in your company, and that's the called special category. These are the sensitive personal data that refer to, for example, race or ethnic origin, political views, membership in trade unions, sexual orientation. And the new categories in the sensitive personal data are genetic and biometric data, and we also include the personal data of children to the category of the special sensitive data. The other changes, the significant change from the current legislation is that the GDPR substantially extended territorial scope. According to new legislation, the Directive 9546 applies to the companies which are based on the territory of EU. However, GDPR is the new regulation which applies also to these EU enterprises, plus to all non-EU companies that offer the goods or the services to EU residents, or, for example, monitoring EU residents' behavior. So basically, if you look at the digital world and if you look at on the internet, I would say that the most of the companies in the world will be affected by GDPR in case that they are doing any business with the EU citizens. The other change which is implemented in GDPR is the role of the data controller and the data processor. These two subjects or entities are the same according to the new according to the current regulation. So the controller is the natural or legal person that determines the purpose and the means of the data processing, and the processor is a natural or legal person that processes the data on behalf of the controller. However, according to GDPR, there are new obligations regarding the security and of the processing of the data. So according to current legislation, only the controller was fully responsible for any data breach. However, according to GDPR, there are also certain obligations to processors who also will be responsible for any data breach. And if you look at the picture of the onion, we can see that the first layer is the responsibility of controller, which obviously remains the same as according to the current legislation. However, if you have a company or the third-party entity which will be processing your data on behalf of you as a controller, it can be the entity, for example, which provides, for example, the cloud services, then even this processor will be responsible for the data breach. So it's really important to have a contract in place between the controller and processor, which will strictly define the responsibilities either of controller or the processor. And as I said, the security of the processing of the personal data will be basically shared between the processor and controller. You can also have another, subject, which is the sub-processor, in case that the processor decides to hire another company which will be used for the services for the controller. Then there is the obligation of the processor to ask controller to appoint the sub-processor as an entity which will also has access to the personal This Article 6 is one of the most important articles in GDPR, which basically says and describes the lawfulness of the processing of the personal data. So basically it tells you what kind of legal titles you can use in order to process the personal data of either your employees, your clients. So these legal titles are either consent, which is given by the subject to process, its personal data, or it can be the contract signed between the company and the subject. And on the other side is the public interest or the legitimate interest of the controller, which are the titles to process the personal data for which you don't need the consent of the subject data. And there are another two legal titles for the processing, and this is the legal obligation, so basically the obligation which is given to the controller by the law, or some other like a vital interest of the data subject. One of the most important legal titles is obviously the consent. According to the current legislation, we also have a consent as one of the legal titles that allows you to process the personal data. According to GDPR, the consent has to be given freely, has to be specific, has to be informed, and newly there is a new feature for the consent, which is the unambiguous, which means that the consent has to be given to the specific reason of the processing. And the forms, for example, which you could see on the internet, for example, some pre-ticked boxes are not allowed anymore, because the consent has to be given by the subject data really in a very specific form, and the subject data cannot be given, has to be unconditional. So in case that you will put any condition to process the data, and you will and the subject data basically doesn't give you the consent to this condition, you are not you cannot basically process the data in case that you are not receiving the consent from the subject data. What does it mean for the processing of sensitive data? As I said, we have two basically categories of the personal data. So the general personal data and the sensitive data. So you are allowed to process the sensitive data based on these conditions, like for example, again, the express consent was given to the processing. Or, for example, processing is mandatory in labor law or social security, social protection. Processing is performed to protect the vital interest of the data subject, or processing is carried out by foundations, associations, and any other reasons you can see on this slide. The new rule, the obligation given by the GDPR, is the notification of the data breaches. So the new regulation introduces the requirement to notify any cases of personal data breaches. And if you remember our picture of onion, you can have a data breach on the either side of the controller or also on the data on the processor. So in case that there is a data breach on the processor side, then the processor is obliged to inform the controller about any data breach. And in case that there is a high risk of the data breach, then the controller is obliged to inform the supervisory authorities within 72 hours. You are obviously obliged to inform the data subject in case of the high risk of the data breach which might happen. What is personal data breach? The data breach is basically constitutes security breach, and it can lead to the accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, or unauthorized disclosure of the personal data. The other, I would say, new rule brought by GDPR is that the rights of the data subject substantially strengthened. So there are certain rights that are available to the data subject according to current legislation, but there are some new new rights assigned to subject data, like for example the right to erasure or the right to be forgotten. Another right is right to restriction of processing data, right to the data portability, or the right to object the processing of the personal data. It has to be said that these rights of the data subject applies to any personal data, including, I call them non-structured, or the stored data, for example, in email attachments, or even in some storages that are not structured, but you can still store some personal data, even that you don't consider them as a personal data. So to all these personal data that are processed by either controller or processor has to be accessed, or there is a right of access of the data subject. Accountability is completely new rule, or the obligation according to GDPR. On one hand, as I said in the beginning, the objective of GDPR is increase the administration, which was connected, for example, to the notification of any processing data, like it is in place according to current directive. On the other hand, these notifications are not be applicable anymore. However, according to the obligation to accountability, you can see that there is a certain new obligations that have to be fulfilled by the either controller or by the processor. Accountability means that you have to implement appropriate technical, organization or procedural measures to demonstrate, the compliance with the GDPR. And these accountability features are like a data protection impact assessment, or the implementation privacy by design or privacy by default. You also are obliged to implement the policies for the data protection. There is a new obligation to appoint the data protection officer. Pseudonymization of personal data is also the new obligation according to GDPR. I don't have a time, obviously, to touch all these accountabilities obligations, but I just pick up some of them which I considered important to be mentioned. The one of them is the pseudonymization, which is the method of processing that enables that the personal data can no longer be attributed to a specific data subject without, however, the use of the additional information, so provided that such additional information is kept separately and is subject to the measures. And as I said in the beginning, pseudonymized data are still covered by GDPR, in contrary to the anonymized data, which doesn't fall in the scope of the under the scope of GDPR. And the another obligation you have in this accountability is the appointment of the data protection officer, which is the element which was brought to the GDPR from the German legislation. And the criteria for the appointment of DPO is following. It's the appointment of DPO is mandatory for all public authorities. And then for the private sector, in case that you monitor the natural people, natural persons in large-scale systematic way, and in case that you are processing this sensitive data. So just going back to the category of the sensitive data. What's the role of DPO? DPO, his main or her main task is the monitoring of the compliance, management of the internal data protection activities, training data processing, conducting in the internal audits, and the Working Party 29 already issued certain interpretation about the role of the DPO, whether which categories of the company, for example, have to appoint DPO. So if you just look at this, website, for example, of the EU Commission and specifically data protection sector section, you could also see more details about the DPO role. What is necessary to do in case to start working on the compliance with the GDPR? You definitely have to implement certain organization, technical, or processional changes. And I would say that there are two phases how you can efficiently and correctly implement the GDPR. First of all, you definitely need to go through the data inventory analysis of your current state, and you should create certain gap analysis, which basically shows you where are the gaps and what activities have to be definitely implemented in the second phase after finishing the phase of this data audit, when you should concentrate on the high risk data and definitely start implementation of, for example, the technical measures in case that you are processing sensitive data in high risk, in automated way. You would definitely need to implement certain pseudonymization measures and some other, and obviously with the support of external advisors, you can get to the stage that you should become this process as soon as possible, because of obviously the time when all companies have to become compliant with GDPR by May 2018. And as I said, you are not alone, so we are ready to help you with the implementation of GDPR. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, and I will just pass to Maciej.
Thank you very much for this useful information. Before Maciej starts with his input, I would like to ask you to look at the question. You should be able to see it in front of you on your screens. Right, it's only one question. Please mark only one answer, and the question is, how do you consider your current state of preparations for GDPR? I'll allow about 1 or 2 minutes. We're almost at 50% of answered questions. Right, about 10 seconds left, please. Right, thank you very much. As it shows, 39% of you are partially prepared or are quite well prepared for GDPR. However, 11% answered that you're not, or people are not prepared at all or not affected by GDPR. Thank you very much. Now let's proceed to the first. The input of Maciej Zachar. He's going to talk about more practical areas. Over to you, Maciej.
Yeah, thank you, Karolina. All right, so I would like to talk a little bit more about the security of personal data and how, in practice, can companies cover that area. So let me start with a brief introduction of our company, just to make clear who we are. We are a Czech company with about 60 to 70 employees, and we've been in the security field since 2009. We've been developing security software, starting with encryption. Now mostly focused on security audit and data loss prevention technologies. Where right now we have like 50,000 more protected devices all around the world, and we are ESET Technology Alliance partner. So what are we focusing mainly is the prevention of data theft, meaning both inadvertent and advertent data breaches. We are also focusing on prevention of employees' mistakes, basically preventing mistakes from happening. And as I told in the beginning, our main focus right now is for personal data protection in companies all around the world who are affected by regulations of such as GDPR. And we have also some features, or our products can also solve the improve utilization of IT resources or improve even productivity in companies. So let me start with my favorite slide, where it shows how the data security field looks like in practice right now. We have lots of different technologies in one side of the ring, and in the second corner you see the regular user like Dave, who has basically the access to the data and is working with the data every day, and he can very easily do a mistake. For example, send the email to wrong email address, or use some unsecured mean to transfer the data, and the incident has just happened. So basically we are trying to prevent that, and we are focusing mainly on the user and how he works. From our experience, the root causes of data leak are human error, as I already mentioned. You can easily describe or easily imagine it's like a situation where you are working in your Outlook and you just send a document that was meant to be sent internally. You are sending it to another person from different organization just because of the fact that the Outlook suggested that, and you haven't noticed that. Also, we are focusing on disgruntled employees because we see that as a very oftenly right now. But not every time it is about the employee that wants to damage the company. In most of the cases, there is a slight misunderstanding about what is really personal and what is company-based. If you imagine, for example, businessmen having their own databases of contact list, and they are using it in one company, they most probably wouldn't want to build a new database of contact as soon as they leave the company, so they will use their own. But and this can be okay, but in a situation where they're employed in competition or the company of the competitor, and start to contact those former customers with better prices, that can be sometimes a problem that damages the original company and can be considered as data leak if they leave the company with the entire database of contacts. So it's not every time about the employee wanting to really damage the company, but in most of the cases it's just employee wants to help himself. Also, what we see very often are problems in processes. I guess you can all imagine a situation where you have employees, and most natural way that they use for transferring the data is unencrypted USB stick that can be lost, stolen. It happens every day. So these are the root causes and the problems that we see every day in companies, and trying to prevent them. So basically, who is the target? As there was already a question whether some companies fall under the GDPR or not. If you make it clear to the practice, every company that processes at least one piece of personal data is affected by the GDPR, and you can, I guess, imagine that it's virtually every company, because every company has at least one employee, has at least some contact that she's or it is working with, and so almost every company falls under GDPR compliance. Also, every company or almost every company has its own know-how, whether it's design plans by production companies, or database of contacts from companies doing business everywhere, or whether it is financial data that are processed internally. Every company has such data, and every company has also employees that regularly work with the data and can every day make a mistake or create an incident. All right. So when it comes to GDPR, what is really requested from the companies? My colleague Eva already mentioned that. I will just quickly summarize it. So what we see when it comes to personal data, what we see in most of our customers is that they process personal employee data. As I already mentioned, it's basically the information about every employee that is needed, for you as a company to process his salary, to process his HR stuff. Also, if you are doing some business with B2C segment, you will most probably process information about customers as a physical persons, patients if you are in healthcare, or basically any citizens when it comes to government organizations. So these are the most oftenly seen personal data that we identify in companies. And when it comes to GDPR, it requires you to implement technical and organizational measures, including the pseudonymization, sorry for that, or encryption, confidentiality, integrity, availability. You need to support all of that, and basically to implement those measures that will ensure that the incident is not happening in your company. And you should prevent the data from the accidental or unlawful destruction. You should prevent the loss, alteration, disclosure, or unauthorized access to the data. So this is like the theory, and how the practice looks like. Well, basically, if you want to start with doing any security about the personal data, you need to start with analysis. So you need tools, and you need procedures to really find out what's the current state of the company, what data it really process, and what is also what are the risks that are most oftenly related to these data processings in a company. When you do this sort of identification, then you need to implement the controls that will be adequate for the for your specific organization, whether you are a big enterprise or small company. The controls or the measures implemented could be different. They could be different for every company, but you need to really ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data. There are also some, let's say, and that's why I have a question mark here. There are also some things that the regulation covers specifically, or says that this is recommended, and that it's encryption and pseudonymization. It's many times it is Many companies just say that, all right, we have encryption and that's it. We don't need anything else. It's not really a case of GDPR because you really need to rethink and adapt procedures or controls that are relevant to the processing, and most oftenly the encryption will be just not enough. All right. So how to start? Well, what we see in practice as a really good way of doing things is to start with policies, because the policies they clearly define the rules. They state what should be protected, how, what is sensitive, and when you define it in the policies, the employees are aware that the data they work with are of sensitive nature and they should behave that way. So just state clearly what you expect from your employees, because if you don't do so, they just don't know what to do, and there will be definitely some incident, as I already mentioned, just employees using their most natural way of doing things, and that is unsecurely. But the policies are very good on paper, but what really helps or what really matters is training. Because if you don't train people, the policy is just a piece of paper that nobody reads. Basically, the target of training is to change the behavior and to really prevent a mistake, because by training you enforce in employees the sense of responsibility. You enforce the let's say the acceptable use or the rules that should be applied on the workplace, and by doing the regular training, you very oftenly have the probability that the employees will follow these rules. So when it comes to technologies, what really can help you in all those stages of implementation of GDPR, and that's why we are here. We, as a Safetica, we have different technologies that can guide you through the entire process or help in different stages. And the first part, as I already mentioned, is the risk analysis, and this is where it comes that it's really useful to have a tool for security audit, because you can find the employees' mistakes, you can find the risks, such as leaving employees, and you can also discover problems in processes, because it's very good that when you have this initial analysis, that you get some information from the company itself, such as about the processes and such. But what really matters is how these processes are being followed in practice, and very oftenly we see in, like, let's say 95 to 99% of cases that there is a problem. Even several days or weeks after the implementation or after the audit starts, we can see, for example, personal ID cards on public cloud. We've seen that in one of our customers' sites. The scans of personal ID cards from his employees were just in clear form available on the internet, because the employee didn't know any better way how to share that with the external contractor. And this is like a really big problem when it comes to GDPR, because this is considered as an incident that affects all the employees from the organization. What we see very often is also know-how or different sensitive stuff on encrypted flash drives, external devices, personal mobile phones as well. And for example, people that want to work from home, just using email as a regular way how to transfer personal data on private email account, just to be able to work from home. But you can, I guess, easily imagine that email is not like the most secure way of transferring the data at all. So these types of problems are very often shown up just several days after the implementation of security audit. And let me just show you how can the results really look like from the practical point of view. So when it comes to, I have here some just demo console with demo data. When it comes to data security and truly working with data, in this particular company, we can see that the most dominant way of transferring the data is using USB sticks. Then we have here also like some private, most probably private, cloud drives such as Google Drive, OneDrive. We can see Dropbox here. We can see Box. So on the first side, we can see that the employees are using these unauthorized ways how to work with the data because they are not really really secured. You can, I guess, imagine that after some employee just uses his own public cloud, the data is leaving a company and you know nothing about what is happening next. So these are the incidents that you want to avoid. And also you can see the most risky behavior from the specific employees or from the specific users in a company. For example, in this particular specific situation, you can see this user Rebecca Rice having the most incidents in this particular company. I'm sorry about the slower connection. I will try to refresh it. But basically, what is very easily seen in this stage are the first attempts or first security problems that can be considered as data leak. For example, that this particular user uploaded some sensitive, some private personal data on the public cloud, or using, for example, an encrypted device to share them with a colleague. All right. So when we come back to the presentation, secondly, what you should do after you went through all these audits, and you already know what are the risks that are related to your data. You should encrypt stuff also. So encryption is good. Nobody is going to tell you that you shouldn't encrypt. But I've mentioned that the encryption is not the only solution. I have here some several tips that you can use. For example, in Microsoft environment, you can use BitLocker technology that is available for encrypting hard drives and removable media. We can support that with our product as well, because we have the central management of BitLocker. You should encrypt the communication channels as well, and also the sensitive data itself. So these are the things that you should be thinking of. And the next thing is to have a solution for the perimeter, because what you want to do definitely is to restrict possibilities for data transfer to limit data leak vectors. In some situations or some particular services, such as, for example, such as BitTorrent, it doesn't really make sense in most of the companies to have that really available for the employees. So the solution is to restrict access to some websites, restrict access to applications, restrict access to printers even, or to cloud services if they are not work-related. You, in most of the cases, do not want employees to use them at all. And the final solution, after you secure the data transfer in means of email, messages, or data warehouse that you are using, or private cloud, FTP, that is used for sharing the data with, for example, some third party. The final solution is to have a data loss prevention solution or data loss prevention software that can help you enforce all these rules. And it does it in a way that it brings you an overview, and it brings you a way to enforce the rules that are and processes that are already in place when it comes to working with personal data. So as you can see, we have different ways of transferring the data, or different ways how to work with them. And in most of these cases, we are looking for, in most of the companies, we're looking for processes that are regularly in place. For example, when it comes to financial department, they are going to communicate internally, the financial documents, internally, they are going to communicate them with some external audit agency as well. They're going to print them on their own printer, but this is like the perimeter or the area or the safe zone that the data should reside in. And the DLP or data loss prevention system alerts you as soon as somebody tries to transfer data outside this safe zone where it should be. The first option is to really monitor what's happening and to have the alerts ready so you are aware very easily that something wrong is happening. The second way that is very often used in most of our customers is the educative way, where you do just the notification mode of DLP and you train employees on the fly, because you show them the security policy and what they should and should not do with the data, exactly in the time when they are working with it. And the third and most restrictive way is just block the activities that are not related to that should not be related to this particular process. So let me show you just a short example. How this can work in practice. By the way, all the resources are available on our webpage. I'll just quickly skip through this intro. And as you can see, we have lots of different ways of data transfer, and we can really enforce most of them from happening. So this is like a example when you have a protected document and you want to, for example, the employee wants to transfer it into his own private cloud service. You can see that the copying is not allowed, and you can see the entire policy there, so you can train the employees on the fly as they are working with data and trying to do something inappropriate. Next, the same goes with uploading it to the website. And the same goes to working with external devices, doing real screenshots, sending the data by email, and so on. So I want to run that to the finish. You can definitely find it on our YouTube channel. I would just quickly, because we are running out of time, I would just quickly like to go through some examples from our real customers, how this can work. For example, when it comes to personal data, there was a big incident in one of our customers from automotive segment. It's by our customer Involve. That is, they supply the BMW cars to the Czech market, and the owner of the company was approached by the man from the competitor's company, and the man offered him a full database of like 10,000 or 20,000 contacts on end customers, and he tried basically just to sell that to the owner of the company, and the owner of the company obviously didn't accept that, but he realized that this is something that can happen to him as well. So that's why we started a data protection project there, and right now they have an implemented DLP with all the technologies and process stuff in place. So there are strict rules how to work with this sensitive material, so this doesn't happen again, or this doesn't happen to the company. The next and less happy story is from our another customer that creates or develops sports planes or sports aircrafts here in Czech Republic. The lead developer of this company, or this particular company, sold all the design plans for new aircraft to the competitor, and right now they are selling the machines for with no costs of deployment, and it cost the original company really a fortune just on the benefit that they would have instead. So do not forget, outside these things that I've mentioned and that we consider very important, also physical security. For example, you can buy equipment like you can see on the image for employees, to not being approached by guests and that the guests won't see what's happening on their screen. Or you can, or we definitely recommend to consider and focus on the network security, availability of data and systems, and to implement also organizational measures, as Eva mentioned, that that bring you or that help you cover the other requirements of GDPR. So you have definitely option to ask questions from the start. So I want to thank you for your attention, and I will pass the word to Carolina to summarize it all.
Excellent, thank you very much. Let's take a look at the second question now, please. You should be able to see that on your screens again. And the question is, what do you consider most difficult for GDPR compliance? Is it the process changes, the implementation of technology, trainings for employees, documentation or management of data protection and finding DPO? Please take your time to make notes. Right, so it seems it's process changes. Also management of data protection and finding DPO. Okay, 10 seconds to finish, please. All right. So we see that process changes and trainings for employees together with management of data protection and finding DPO is probably going to be the most difficult. Thank you. And now we'll take a look at your other questions. Let me read the question, and Mrs. Kornichkova and Maciej Zachar will answer them. The first question, are these rules applicable also for state secret services?
No, because obviously there are some exemptions from the GDPR regulation that, for example, all state authorities that have a legal title for the processing of the personal data for the public interest, obviously they will be exempted on from full scope, of GDPR, because obviously if we are talking especially about the secret services, you can imagine that they are handling very sensitive and confidential data, and obviously the person cannot, for example, apply the right to access to all this information, because obviously the government has to protect, the security in this way. However, it's up in the national legislation and national laws to which scope and to which extent they will implement GDPR in local regulations and local legislation.
Okay, I will just read the second question. What about UK, Brexit, and countries that are leaning towards leaving the EU? If such a company has HQ in non-EU country and branch offices in EU countries, will they be subject to GDPR, local data protection laws in the HQ located country, or a combination of both?
Obviously, there is a lot of discussion about the Brexit and how the Brexit will have an implication on GDPR. First of all, there is the clear message from UK government, also the UK Commission. I mean the local data protection office that UK has to implement GDPR due to the fact that GDPR will be effective earlier than Brexit itself. And even after the Brexit, you can imagine that many UK companies is doing the business with EU. So the UK will definitely, as other companies around the world, have to be compliant, with the GDPR in case that they will offer the services or the products to EU citizens. So that's the extraterritorial scope of the GDPR.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is one question for sharing the presentation materials. Yes, definitely. We're going to send to all of them via following email or follow-up email. And yeah, this is for the questions that arrived to us. So I hope we answered everything that you wanted to know. And thank you for your attention, and we hope to see you sometimes again on one of our next webinars.
Thank you.
Thank you.